Now starting video transmission. Beep 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 beep. It's
We're
Friday,
live.
March 10th. It's about 20 minutes out. It's almost 4:20 there, Josh.
420. Yeah. Well, for some
Is
people
it
that's a big deal.
is it time to spark one in
I, you
celebration
know,
of Bitcoin for
it
420 on Friday?
for I've never been I've never been a 420 guy, but for all of our friends that are, I think it probably is a great time to go ahead and light one up.
I don't participate in those dealings, but man, I sure do enjoy 420 memes and 420 culture. And I just think it's hilarious. I don't even have to light it up to enjoy what's going on. But I think it's downright appropriate that um, it's Friday, it's 420. The fiat banking fractional reserve system is falling flat on its face again. And one might suggest or even think out loud, even like I'm doing right now, that somebody in the system it's been 420 for years for them, and it's finally starting to show. So
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's a great way to kick things off today, talking about counterparty risk.
it's something that you and
And
I really want to hone in on people, especially, we talk about it in the context of crypto markets, right? And managing your counterparty risk. But again, and we've also talked about this, like the reason that we're in crypto and Bitcoin specifically is to hedge against counterparty risk within the traditional banking system, right? And nobody wants to
yes,
talk about that or acknowledge it, or, all you Bitcoiners are crazy, you guys, don't understand, everything's fine. They short up the banking system. And, it's just like, look, from my perspective, I don't want banks to crash, right? That's terrible. Millions of people are impacted, lives are ruined. It's terrible. But I didn't make the system, right? None of us chose to opt into the system that we're born into, right? Like, and so what do? Well, one of the things you do is you hedge against counterparty risk in traditional banking systems by using your dollars to buy something that lives outside the current system that doesn't have any counterparty risk. And that something is Bitcoin. And that's, for anybody who's ever said, what's the purpose of Bitcoin? Why do you guys like Bitcoin so much? You guys are idiots. You're just talking about internet money. Well, I don't think, as of today, the banking system is falling apart, but it sure doesn't feel real good right now, does it?
no,
Like
it does
what's the
not.
the number one rule of bank runs is you can't say bank runs. Like when it happens fast, right? And so I think this is just, you know, look, hopefully it's contained. Hopefully, it doesn't turn into some big event, but that's what we kind of are worried about, right? When you look at all the system and the way it's set up and the way everything works, once you go down that rabbit hole and learn, you go, holy shit, the whole thing's a Ponzi scheme, right?
Yes, and here's some interesting tidbits for everyone. The reason I'm over here chuckling and smiling like a 10-year-old is because Bitcoiners and other crypto folks have been accused of being nutbags, nut jobs, tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists. The dollar's not going away. No, the dollar is not going away. That's for sure. Okay. But what's interesting today is that the Bitcoin that I bought 2 or 3 days ago and that I own and that I happen to custody is the exact same Bitcoin today. And no one took it from me. No, in Bitcoin terms, it is worth exactly the same. In other monetary instrument terms and other fiat currency terms, it may be worth a little less in US dollars or euros or yen or Great British pounds today. But here's what I can tell you with certainty is that the money, the quote unquote money that I have stored as Bitcoin is the same Bitcoin today as it was the day that I bought it and the years past the days that I bought Bitcoin. And tomorrow it will be the same because I'm literally holding custody of it and no one can take it from me. And why is that important? Because and I'll make, or where I'm going with this is that if you have an account at a traditional bank that is running, or that is a fractionally reserved or operating with fractional reserve format, status, operation, whatever you want to call that. If I have money in that bank and my account is, say, or people's accounts are typically FDIC insured up to 250,000. If I have 251,000 in that bank account and that bank goes belly up and closes down for any reason, then my money is effectively gone until I file a claim with FDIC. I don't even know what that process looks like, just for transparent. I mean, I thank goodness I've
Well,
never had to deal with this.
and that, that's great and it makes people feel good, but FDIC
Yeah.
doesn't. They don't cover. There's not enough. They don't have enough reserves to cover every deposit over 200. It's a fraction of what they say it is. You can look up the real numbers yourself. Don't quote me on them, but they aren't even anywhere close to being able to cover all those deposits that are quote unquote FDIC insured. I mean,
Yes,
that's the problem.
but here's where I'm going with this, though, and your point is excellent. Though we'll circle right back to something important there, and just a memento here. However, what's really important is that if you go through this trauma, your money is gone initially until you go and prove that you had it, and then somebody else has to bring it back to you. And if you had more than 250,000 in that account, it is gone. You've lost it. Now back onto this other side tangent that is relevant and rows in the same direction as where I'm going here. In my own experience, talking and discussing with other people who were working in financial roles within their organization, who were responsible for the corporate financials, and they had 5, 10, 8 million in excess cash, their operating cash. It was a full-time job or some people were this is years ago, but some people were so afraid of losing the money because of the institutional risk, the counterparty risk, the bank that they had their money with. They would take their $1 million, let's say it's only $1 million, and they would break it up into $250,000 chunks and move it between accounts. And they would occasionally move it between banks because they would not take the risk. And now think about this. This is, yes, yeah, this is still post 2008, 2009 financial crisis, but pre 2020 COVID madness. So 17, 18, 19 years. Okay. There are people that they were utterly consumed with managing the risk that they perceived because they probably had gone through there's some sort of catalytic event or some sort of traumatic event where banks, because believe it or not, banks fail all the time. Today there's this big stink in the media about this one bank that failed. And but banks fail all the time. And you think there's great memes with Morpheus leaning over. You think that's money in your account? And
no, it's true. It's
yeah,
true.
there are numbers on a screen. Yeah, when I log into my own online banking, I look at the screen and I think, okay, how do I protect this? That's what I think about every day. How do I protect this?
Most people that deposit money in banks never ask their bank to show them, an assets and liabilities, right? Very simple stuff, right? Crypto catches so much shit because they, we're apparently some shady industry, right? But you got to do your due diligence on banks too, right? Like, okay, bank, what is your asset and liabilities? How much do you owe people? Like, what are your total deposits? Nobody does it. Nobody does it. And when you ask, they get all goofy about it, right? Like, who are you to ask me what I should do with your money?
Like they're doing us a favor by existing. That's the most hilarious thing. Is
and again,
that
though, like I have great relationships with my banks. Like, and just so everybody knows, I'm not pulling money out of the bank. I don't think there's imminent bank runs. But the reason I don't care is because I'm hedged. It doesn't matter. I've got whatever money I got in the bank, and I hate to lose it, but I've got my Bitcoin hedge, man. I don't lose any sleep at night over it.
Yeah, I'm finally in the last 2 years, I'm in a position where I am equally positioned, or I'm positioned so that if one were to, well, if the one that I'm most concerned about, which is the fiat holdings, okay, I'll call them, if they were to disappear because of crisis, uh, yeah, that would be very upsetting.
It
But
is funny. It is funny. Sorry to interrupt, but
no problem.
there's probably a higher chance of you losing the dollars in your bank account than your Bitcoin just disappearing.
That's
Properly,
right.
properly stored in cold storage with proper security features. Uh, you know, it just it's not going to happen, right? Like that's the let's preface that with it's a infinitely small percentage shot that it happens, right? Like you got to live a billion times and get hit by lightning every life in the same spot, kind of odds.
Yeah, yeah. I was about to say it would be like me being like tying both my hands behind my back and somehow being able to take a pencil, put it in between my teeth, and then write out the winning lottery numbers. I would be more likely to do that than have something become wrong, quote unquote wrong, where my Bitcoin would not be accessible based on the the security practices that anybody that can fog a mirror, quite frankly, can follow. This is not rocket science. You
Well, yeah,
think,
and I think what
yeah,
this leads to totality is like what the Bitcoin people look at and what people that invest in macro people look at is the Federal Reserve is in a very hard spot right now. They wanted to raise rates until quote unquote something broke. Well, something is
here you
breaking,
go.
right? And so what is their alternative? Well, the alternative is you can't, I don't think they're going to let the US banks fail. I say that, I don't know. I have no idea what these people are trying to do. Maybe that's what they want. But if they don't want the banks to fail and you start having these contagion effects from one bank to the other, they're going to have to bail them out. And that's the assumption that everybody's making, right? And so is that right or wrong? I don't know. But, it's awfully interesting to see that, you know, all these confluences of events circling around now. And what's very frustrating is they keep saying, like, you can tell they're trying to tie it to crypto. Like,
Of course
and
they
it's like, no, 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 you dirty people. No, no, no. This is not a crypto problem. This is a bank problem.
Isn't it interesting that a bank that has ties with venture capital, which is way further along, talk about being on a part of the risk curve here, but also dealings with crypto entities. Okay, the administration, the authorities, the institutions that are here to protect us, they allowed this bank to fail. Yes, I think it's been allowed to fail. Now, isn't it interesting that when the housing market was going down, or let me back up, when the much bigger traditional banks who've lobbied to Congress, kept their they've kept the political campaigns that they support flush with cash over the years, and the mortgage-backed securities crisis starts to unfold. What's the first thing they did after things started to unravel and the cracks appeared? They keystroked at the Fed and pumped $700 billion into the system to save as many banks as they could.
700
Yet
billion now, that seems like chump change, man.
it does seem like chump change.
Which is
Well,
insane.
what would that be adjusted for inflation today?
Some
Just
number
kidding.
of trillions. Like, and
Yeah.
do you ever see that thing? I'm sure we've talked about this before, but the difference between like a billion and a trillion is
Yes.
your brain can't comprehend it. And so
It's ridiculously different.
we're in really strange times right now. Got a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. So the thing I was trying to articulate there was simply the people are kind of like the Genslers and the other folks are like standing back, like, ooh, we don't want to be seen to be trying to save this thing because we don't want our constituents to think that we have sympathy for this industry. And it's all, I mean, put on the conspiracy theory hat here about Operation Choke Point and all this other stuff that we've been reading about for a couple of weeks. And lo and behold, here it is. So this bank has this trouble now. Is it something a little more in the middle, a little more neutral? Probably. There's a lot that I don't know because I don't have all the information. I unfortunately am like a lot of others. I get my information from the internet, and it's usually stale and out of date by the time it even gets to me. Even though information travels on on the backs of electrons and photons over fiber optic networks, still by the time I'm able to make sense of something, it's too late, and it's been invalidated. Just like with how quickly people tweeted about JPM severing their bank relationship with Gemini, and then what, an hour later, Gemini tweets that the hell are you, basically, what the hell are you all talking about? Everything's still intact, and everybody had to go. Or they didn't have to, but some people very quickly walked back and said, "Oh, I guess this is wrong." So you see what I mean? Like one way or the other, we're not dealing with all of the pieces of the puzzle, and
and
yeah.
nobody is, right. Like everybody's quick to make assumptions. But the problem is with this stuff is the banking is all about confidence, right? And so the issue is you have Senator Warren out there basically inciting a bank run against Silvergate, right? And then all of a sudden that happens, and you have Silicon Valley Bank today. And then if you watch the bank stocks this morning, they're all getting hit. So, these senators go out there and they say all this dumb shit about crypto they don't understand, and they dance on the grave of this bank they basically initiated a bank run on. And now you're starting to see contagion across other banks, and you go, wow, who would have thought that a sitting senator trying to crush a bank and succeeding would have had bad effects, unintended effects? Like it's very frustrating to watch these people get up and like, from our perspective, we're not sitting here dancing on the grave of these banks. That Silicon Valley Bank, I think, was a very good institution that helped a lot of entrepreneurs over the years. It's a really sad thing that happened. But I've got a tweet pulled up from Balaji. I don't know if you can see it, Ted, but I'll read it. It says, Uncle Sam is the new Sam Bankman-Fried. What just happened? Too long didn't read. Tech ended up bailing out the government because tech deposits were used to buy billions in government bonds under false pretenses. It's actually very similar to FTX, in that the entity which people trusted with their money was A, close to the US government, and B, told them it had the money right until it didn't. How SVB happened, which is Silicon Valley Bank. First, the state set up fake accounting rules. Those rules allowed banks to tell customers they had money when they did not have money. Two, the Fed suddenly sent interest rates the sky after years of keeping them near zero, denying inflation was a problem and or telling the world inflation was transitory. 3, banks that bought bonds under the Fed's misleading guidance got rug pulled. Skyrocketing interest rates meant that government bonds they just bought a few months ago were suddenly far less valuable. So that's why people don't have the money in their SVP or Silicon Valley bank accounts. All their capital was used to buy bonds from the government, and that government allows banks to legally lie about this in their accounting. Uncle Sam is the new Sam Bankman-Fried. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I mean, the banks are. If I have my own internal math and accounting right, when you go and open a bank, you're forced to buy government bonds. Is that wrong? Like it just said, the bank bought treasuries because they're supposed to be risk free.
Well, that's your counterparty. That's your counterparty risk, right? Like and I love that term, risk free. Like they keep saying these government bonds are risk free. It's like, well, the entity paying you is the government. How is that risk free? Like,
yeah, tell that to SVP.
I know that's the way it's always been, and all these people, they're like, oh, it's safe. It's safe until it isn't. And again, we're not experts on all this stuff. We're just two guys pontificating and talking about it from a crypto lens. Again, we don't want banks to fail, don't want people to be, but again, you just got this, the system is designed for this kind of stuff to happen. And the taxpayer gets, they bail out these guys that run crappy banks. It happens every time, and I'm sure it'll happen again, because they can't afford to let it fail. The other thing is, I don't know, man, maybe they want them to fail so they can rush into CBDC. Maybe they're purposely trying to crash these banks, create the problem, then provide the solution.
It's funny you say that, trying to rush into CDBC. Like, I grew up near Washington, D.C., and I spent 30 some years there. And I used to listen to people talk about things that went on in Washington and how incompetent they were, or how it's not that they're, no, it was me to, hold on, let me back up. People would be like, oh man, it's all conspiracy to control us. And after working with different defense contractors for about 12 years and working directly with federal agencies and with federal employees and all of the BS and all the red tape and all of the politics and all the bullshit, pardon my French, I used to think to myself, there is no way that this clown, this clown, this traveling clown show that just stays in this little cube here in DC, that could ever, like, they can't not tie their shoelaces together before they walk. It was just constant bullcrap and waste, incompetence, and people siloing information, hoarding power in their little like enclaves. King of the ants syndrome is what I called it. But then 10 years ago, I moved away and I came to Florida because I wanted to get away from all the incompetence and just the stupidity and just the talking in circles and yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and nothing would change. And there's, half the time when I see stuff like the things that I read on Twitter now, like Biden's going to tax electricity that's used for Bitcoin mining by 30%. I read that stuff and I'm like, yeah, this is. I spent 25 years of working in that mess of people's talk. The talk and the walk were never in line, ever. It was all just like the good consulting analogy. There's never any money in the solution. The real money is in consulting and prolonging the problem. Okay, so that's the business model around the Beltway. Okay, it just is what it is. Maybe I'm the idiot for leaving and not starting a contracting business. Maybe I should have done like some other guys that I know who did. I didn't serve in the military. My father did. He was a Marine, and he steered me away from that. I was a computer nerd. Thank goodness. But there are plenty of other people that like these veterans come back from serving. They marry a foreign national. They marry a woman who's Vietnamese or Filipino or something, and they start a business in their wife's name so they can take advantage of the 8A minority disadvantaged business. And what happens is you're able to apply for effectively special, I don't want to call it special treatment, but you get different types of treatment as a business where when a government puts out a contract for the big defense contractor types to bid on, by law, the big dogs like the Boeings and the Lockheeds of the world are required by law to sub out a certain percentage of the work to minor 8As and other defense contracts, smaller defense contractors. It's a legal framework, a legislated framework for being able to spread the work across out different companies. So not one organization like a Lockheed gets to benefit from the business, I mean the revenue. So anyway, maybe I should have done that, but I just, after working in those organizations, and I'm not knocking these people for trying to make a living and start companies and run legitimate and do good things. I mean, there's a lot of great work believe it or not, a lot of great things happened, even though it was really frustrating dealing with the red tape and the muck and the swamp, as Trump would say, because there is a lot of that. But if you have the right personality type and you can tolerate that kind of stuff, then it's exactly the right environment. Go for it. But I just,
you know how stuff gets done in those kind of worlds. It's very simple.
Yeah, I just got so tired of it.
Yeah, it's bullshit, and people want to act like that's not the way it works. It just is. So
yeah, like you piss the wrong person, or you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, they stab you in the back, and they'll walk over your corpse to get to the reward. In this case, it's a lucrative contract, or they'll completely destroy a business relationship with you without thinking twice. It's as polite and politically correct as everyone is. It's backstabbing and cutthroat, and that's not what we're trying to talk about here. I didn't mean to take us off on this tangent, but I wanted to. I thought it might be useful, but I'll let you veer us back on track. Sorry about that.
First, you had a swing and a miss. That's all right. That's what happens, right? We're live streaming. No, I got what you're saying, though, but it's relevant to the conversation because you know, what is actually happening here? Like, what you see on TV versus what actually is happening are two drastically different things, right? And so what I worry about is, okay, look, I've got to look about, I live in the United States, right? I don't know if I'm going to live here forever, but it's really hard to leave. My friends and my family are here. But what can I do in the United States? I can pick the state that I live in. If I live in a tax-free state that is close to home, that I think is a lot less corrupt than the one I'm from. So, that's one thing you can do. Like, but the other thing you can do is you can hedge. You can hedge with Bitcoin. I mean, you can hedge with gold. You can hedge with I would say real estate, but man, not real sold on real estate in the coming years. I don't want to get you all worried, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's just say that, right? I think that the Bitcoin is a much more attractive option than putting
I agree.
your putting 100 grand in a rental property in Cleveland, Ohio, is not as attractive as 100 grand in a monetary network that's on the verge of scaling to 1 billion people. I don't know. You know, the digital version is the way I think the world is going. So I'll take digital real estate. That's just me. Uh,
Yep.
I
I'll
wanted
take.
to show you this. Jim Cramer. He said J.P. Morgan is a fortress. That bank is fucked.
No, if I'm anyone at JP Morgan, I'm doing this right now, going, oh no, oh, my career is over. I'm gonna update my LinkedIn tonight. I guess thank goodness he did it on a Friday, right?
He's so bad now. Like, he used to be like a voice people listen to, but then I think what happened? Did he go all the way woke and then just turn full idiot? Like, is that what happened to him, or?
I don't know, man. I'm like, if I've got my math correct here, I was told there would be no math, first of all. But wasn't Jim Cramer homeless at one point? And he
I don't know.
rose. And I'll assume this is correct for a second. If I remember correctly, Jim Cramer was at one time he was one time homeless and has made a career, like managed to like pick himself up by bootstraps and like get into the entertainment business and become somebody. I mean, he became a celebrity, for Pete's sake. I mean, you don't have to start homeless for it to be difficult to become a celebrity. you know I just, and then something like, it kind of reminds me almost of the Bam Margera saga. Like this, if you're not familiar, Google Bam Margera, Margera. He was of Jackass fame with Johnny Knoxville and that whole crew. But Bam Margera was a skater, turned into a celebrity by way of the Jackass franchise, doing their silly, like really over the top video stuff. But man, that guy took a left turn at Albuquerque in his life, and his career spiraled down the tubes. He got addicted to painkillers, which, man, it's so sad because he had
Well,
such a,
those
it's
those things
easy.
are those things are man. Those things are so bad. That
I know.
what they allowed to happen in this country is criminal with that stuff. I mean, it really is. Nobody wants to be addicted to that stuff. Like, even like people that are addicted to drugs. Like, we need to help those people. You don't need to shun them, right? Like, it's just
I know.
you know,
I know
it's
exactly, and I
just
agree with you. I just so I'm thinking about I think about like a Bam Margera style story, and I wonder like at what point in Jim Cramer's career, like what happened is what is, and it's just sheer curiosity. And I'm not saying any of this to be judgmental. I mean, who the hell am I to judge anyone? I live in
no,
Podunk, Florida, and I'm not super wealthy, and I'm not famous, and I'm not a supermodel and all these other things. And, I haven't solved any like really big problems for the world like Elon Musk has, so, okay, I haven't done any of those things. So does that mean I can't have an opinion or I can't be curious?
absolutely
No.
not. No,
Okay.
you can. Yeah, that's the great thing about the internet. We have this platform that we can yell into and scream all day, and people can listen or not listen. But I will tell you, it's extremely powerful. I mean, and it's a platform that you can be used for good, or it can be used for malfeasance and bad things too. So I think what we're trying to do is just kind of use some examples that are happening today to reiterate, like, kind of one, you have to watch your counterparty risk in everything you do, right? Like, you always
Yes.
have to find an exit to anything you're doing, whether that's real estate or Bitcoin or banking or, we'll see how this plays out. I don't have any idea how it's going to play out. It's certainly, like you were saying earlier, if you read through Twitter and open up YouTube, my God, it's just doom and gloom. Like, I opened up YouTube the other night, it was World War III, World War III, World War III, Bitcoin's over, world's crashing, and it's just like, bro, like, chill. Like, even if all that's true, I think these people make money from fear porn, and I think they
Oh
get
yeah.
clicks that way, and like, but like, it's just exhausting. And then what happens though is it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's what I'm worried about right now with what's happening with these banks. Is like, maybe there isn't a problem, but if you talk about it enough and put it out in the zeitgeist enough, a problem may manifest. You know, like, that's the crazy part with all this stuff. It's like the circular conversation we keep having. It's pretty wild. Truthfully, it's wild times to be alive. Like, I'm happy with my Bitcoin position. I'm happy with my USD position, my alt positions. Like, but that being said, we're crypto. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Bitcoin could go to 5 grand tomorrow. Like, that's part of what you have to look at when you do this. Is like, do I think mid to long term, when the Federal Reserve starts pumping liquidity into the system to save failing banks, that'll be good for the price of Bitcoin? Yeah. Is that good for the world? No. Like, my outlook is, I would prefer the world be on a sound money, right? I would prefer that the rules be known and everybody could play by the same game, right? And that there weren't people that got special benefits by being close to political people or closer to the money printer, or because of, they happen to be born with the right last name. I would prefer we have a fair system, but we don't. Like, that's not the world we live in. So the only option that you can do in that you have in that scenario is to protect yourself against risks that may or may not happen in the future. And there's probably people that have a ton of gold buried in their backyard for this exact reason. But, like, I don't want to live that way. Like, again, I don't want to be shitting in a hole killing my own goats. I like going to the grocery store. I like being close to a city. I like going out at night. I like socializing in nice bars. And I don't want the world to fall apart. Like, I
Yeah.
get there's this thing with Bitcoiners that, like, they cheer on doom, and it's like, no, 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 guys, you do not want that. The last thing you want is a world where Bitcoin is the only thing worth anything, because people will go nuts. You
They'll
need
kill you. They'll try to kill you for
yeah,
it.
they'll kill you. Yeah, and so what you need is a parallel system that's being built right now. You need them to slowly inflate their way out of this problem, right, over the course of 5 to 10 years, and start putting solutions on the table. I'm terrified that they screwed the pooch and they're going to try to jam a CBDC down our throat. That is scary, because it'll happen on a Friday night. Could be this Friday. People will wake up, they won't have access to their bank accounts, and they'll say, "Oh, this XYZ thing happened. Don't worry, we're going to replace all your money with the CBDC. It's the same as a dollar, but it's digital. All your dollars are digital anyway. Don't worry about it. It's the same thing," and they'll own you.
And then what happens when the U.S. government decides, if they do this, they stuff the CBDC thing down our throats. They take all of our dollars out of our bank account that we could go and ask for currency. Like, if I went to the bank today, I could say, I want you to empty all of my bank accounts and give me US dollars and $100 bills. And I want to take them and I'm going to put them in a briefcase and I'm going to walk out of here. Okay. I could do that. But what happens when you can't redeem the numbers on your bank account, and when you walk in, you look at your smartphone and you're like, oh, I have $100 in my $100 US dollars in my bank account. I'm going to go to the bank or I'm going to go to the ATM and I'm going to withdraw. What happens when you can't do that anymore? And what they replace that $100 with current US currency, and that is tracked from, just like it's like today, the dollars in my bank account, I can go get currency and I can go buy naughty things with them if I want to, from somebody I don't know on the street if I wanted to. But that dollar bill,
or you can buy eggs and bacon.
I could buy eggs and bacon, but that US dollar is paper. it has a serial number, but once it like leaves the financial institution, it's in my possession, that there's no GPS in it. They don't know where it is. I could drive to Saskatchewan tonight and bury it in the ground, and it would be there for, theoretically forever. But that doesn't happen with CDBCs because they're able to be tracked in the same way you can look on a public blockchain and see a transaction between, say, two Bitcoin addresses. Okay, I'm not knocking the digital nature, but what happens in other places around the world that I think a lot of people don't understand is, like, for example, in China, if you get your salary in the yuan, for example, it's the CDBC issued yuan, you have a certain amount of time to spend that money. So the idea of saving is basically out the window. Your money now has an expiration date. And what happens to, and think about this, if you can't save money for the future, what the hell are you going to do in the future to provide for yourself when you're either not interested in working anymore, or not even working, when you're not interested in participating in the labor force anymore, or you can't because you have a health problem, you get into a car accident, or something unsavory happens, because this is the real world. Things happen sometimes. And I find that terrifying personally, that the money that I have in my bank account could be vacuumed out. Now, normally today, if I have $100 in my checking account and it vanishes, I call the bank and I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, well, maybe somebody gained unauthorized access to the account. So that's the current system that will become legacy mindset and legacy process, because in the future, if you get $100 and you have 2 weeks to spend it, then it gets vanished. You can't call anybody, and you think the world is hard now. You think, oh, just call my bank, blah, blah, blah. But who are you going to call when the Federal Reserve yanks the CDBC out of your account because you didn't spend it, and you had 2 weeks to spend it, Ted? Sorry.
Well, and that's why we equate it to a slavery type system, because in the example you gave with somebody that doesn't want to work or has gotten old and decided they don't want to work anymore, you're dependent on the government. And so at that point, they decide if you live or die, right? And so that's the antithesis of what the United States and America is. And so that's why these things are really scary, and you got to think about them, right? And you got to kind of understand what may be potentially on the horizon and why certain entities might prefer a system like that over the current system, right? And so right now the system we have is not it's not perfect, but what it's allowed to have happen over the last 40 or 50 years is it's produced a boom of real estate development, tech deals, all this stuff, and it's innovation, all this stuff. But this fiat money cycle is about over, and they have to transition to a new system because these things only last anywhere between 50 and 100 years, right? Before the purchasing power of the printed dollar becomes worthless because they've overprinted. It's no longer tied to hard assets, and you've got to start over, and that's what they're doing. How they're going to do it, I have no idea, right? And that's why we're so feverish about 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, regardless of whatever you denominate it in, whether it's US dollars or new US dollars or whatever. It's always going to be 1 Bitcoin. You control it. It's a bearer asset. Nobody, the bank can't just come and take it from you. The government can't just come and take it from you. I say that, but they could file a lawsuit. They could, worst case scenario, $5 wrench attack. But those aren't very highly likely, assuming you pay taxes and you kind of don't go to bad places. But yeah, man, it's scary, And
So imagine. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. I was just kind of rambling, but when I think about okay, where do I spend most of my dollars? Everything gets ran through a credit card, right? The idea of it being a CBDC is irrelevant to me, other than the fact that I know what a CBDC actually is. It's a control mechanism, right?
Like ultra financial surveillance, ultra control. If you want to buy something that, if you want to, today, there are certain firearms manufacturers, distributors, retail outlets that can't get bank accounts with certain financial. And so it's already we already have like some form of what I'm about to describe today, where based on the thing that I decide as an American citizen, like a voting age, tax-paying American that has rights guaranteed by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, in this free country that we live in today, I want to go buy something and I happen to have a credit card of some kind and I go to swipe to pay for it, and the transaction is then declined because of a policy decision made at a financial institution that was issuing US dollars, or is allowed to issue, or is a licensed money transmitter and handler of money that is not a government entity telling me how I can spend government issued currency, meaning in this case US dollars. I think that is BS. And
I agree.
so imagine this gets even like the question, like there's the great memes of recent, like, gosh, how can it get any worse? Well, here's how. Now you have a situation where the Federal Reserve or whatever government entity or agency is going to issue the CDBC. They're going to call it the digital dollar. It's going to land in your account, okay? Except this time, instead of having to have someone at the FBI or a bank or some other government agency go and do the surveillance work to try to find and trace. I mean, it's already easy enough to trace money as it flows around anyway. I was saying earlier it was very difficult, but it's actually not that big a deal. The FBI are really good at this, for example. And yeah, they mostly do good things like trying to track money that drug cartels use to cause harm in the world. But what I'm trying to get to is that so I'll use the trucker situation in Canada, where people that were protesting against the government then turned around and did something. I don't know if it was legal or illegal or whatever. They shut down access to their bank accounts to keep them from being able to access their money. Now, let's say, so now how does it get worse than that? So I have my CDBCs in my account, and the president of the United States at the time says something that I disagree with. I go on Twitter and I say, I very respectfully disagree with the opinion and the policy decision, blah, 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 blah. I would not support this. It's a tweet. An alarm gets triggered and my CDBCs get yanked from my account because I disagreed with the person in power. And like my free speech is no longer intact. I mean, you can say, yeah, you got free speech, but you can say anything you want as long as you agree with the current administration, type of thing. And my ability to then feed myself. And so that's like a version of Operation Choke Point, where they're going to choke us off at the individual level to have access to financial resources that we use to trade for food, shelter, like basically like the hierarchy of needs. I mean, it's funny. I've talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs at least 5 times this week. And this is the 5th time. Okay. So here I am. We're back down at the base layer of the Maslow's hierarchy, where we're having to then fight for basic survival. And how am I supposed to protest against the government if I can't feed myself and I don't have shelter and I can't bathe and I don't have access to money to buy things like basic supplies, like basic medicines, like Tylenol or Advil. So I get a splitting headache and I can't go to the store and buy something, and I am worse off than someone who is perhaps on government aid at that point. You know, I'm not knocking anybody on government aid. I'm just saying, like, how
do they do that, right? And let's tie it back to crypto. The difference is Bitcoin's an open, public, decentralized ledger, right? That anybody can see and monitor, and nobody can stop anybody from sending money anywhere. A CBDC would be private database. They might use a third-party ledger. They might use a decentralized level, but it'll be controlled by centralized parties, right? And so that's the main difference, that you won't be able to move money without the permission of a controlling entity. And so that controlling entity could be a, malevolent one, or it could be, benign one, right? Like, you don't know. But when your money's controlled like that, it limits your mobility. It limits you can't leave if they don't want you to. You can't spend money on things they don't want you to. You can't save your money appropriately because you probably have caps on how much you can save, because God forbid somebody get rich in this country that's not a politician, right? It's like, entrepreneurs all of a sudden become the enemy, and people that work hard their whole lives are now the enemy, and the middle class is now the enemy. Like, how much more do they want to pilfer from the people, right? Like, that's like, and the answer is more, right? Like there's a great movie, I forget what it is, but they're talking about money, and the guy goes to him, some Wall Street movie or something. He goes, "What's your number?" Like, say my number, if I hit 20 million, I'd quit working and everything. And the guy said, "More." And that's what these people are like.
More.
There's no number high enough for them. That the answer is more. They just want more. And why do they do this stuff? It's not for the benefit of you and me. I can assure you of that. They'll come out and the media will say, XYZ bank failed because of Bitcoin and crypto. Don't worry, we've got government coin, which is crafted by the finest minds at, MIT and Stanford, and it's unhackable and perfect, and this is the solution we have to the problem. It's like, all right, no thanks. Like, I'll go, back to seashells before I go to the CBDC.
Yeah, it has the potential for utter madness, and I think there's two things I wanted to share real quick. One is the folks in the UK were talking about having a digital British pound, and right out in the open was that you wouldn't be able to hold more than 20,000 British pounds in CDBC in the CDBC format in your account. They literally were. So like, what is the point of working hard and trying to save money so that you can afford to live and try to have a healthy, happy life? And I'm telling you, this is insane to like I don't know if this is all just a psyop. I hope it is. I hope that like at some point something else infiltrates the zeitgeist, and this whole CDBC thing becomes like a laughable joke. Like who remembers Hillary Clinton's like healthcare reform thing that she was supposedly going to do? Like when Bill Clinton got elected, it was like, oh, the dream team. We've got Bill Clinton's going to lead the world and blah, blah, blah. Whatever. All presidents, whatever you think about them, some of them did some good things, some of them did some bad things, or whatever. But it's the same thing with what was her name? Al Gore's wife. I forget her name.
His Gore.
Yeah, the First Lady Gore was supposed to do something like really amazing, allegedly, but it turned out to be utter crap. And people were all excited about it, and some people were terrified of it, and then they forgot about it, and it was all water under the bridge. I'm hoping that this whole CDBC thing becomes water under the bridge at some point, because enough people enough of us rise up today and say, as the body that puts the politician in, that votes to put the politician in power, like this is not acceptable to us.
Well, it's going to get to that point, right? And how do people don't care about things until it hits their wallet, right? And it's about to hit their wallet, and they're going to have to wake up and, I don't know, I this stuff, you think about it all day, every day for 6 years, you get burnt out on it. And then this kind of stuff happens, and it's like, well, I guess there's validity to, what's the quote? I think this was a Balaji one, like, or something like, it's a great day to be a turkey 364 days a year.
Yeah.
Until it's not, right? Like until Thanksgiving, right? That's basically what's going on. Like, it's great that we have all this stuff working perfectly until it doesn't. And then what do? Well, there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do, like as normal people. Like, we can't stop it from happening. You could get up every day and talk about the dangers and the BS that comes with fractional reserve banking. Some of the things they did during COVID, they lift the reserve limit to 0%. We could whine about that all day. It won't change a thing. It doesn't matter. All you can do is try to hedge against this counterparty risk, which is the traditional banking system. And you can subscribe your own risk level to it. Like, this is something that, there's a lot of people that are a lot more intelligent than you and I that understand this stuff. They probably listen to us and go, those guys are nuts. But I prescribe a non-zero chance to a banking collapse, right? And because of that, I catch myself with Bitcoin and other things, right? So, that's just how I look at it. I don't know about you, Ted. I think you have a similar view,
I do.
but I don't know. Anyway, probably a good spot to wrap it up for the day. Going right at 50 minutes. I got some stuff I got to get done. As always, I think we just wanted to talk about counterparty risk, some of the stuff that's happening with these banks today. And but don't listen to us. We're just two guys on the internet talking to each other. Do your own research. Please do your own research.
Go down the counterparty risk rabbit hole on Google and try not to find yourself sitting in the corner, like afterwards. So
it applies to everything. I pulled it up on Google. Counterparty risk is the probability that the other party in an investment, credit, or trading transactions may not fulfill its part of the deal and may default on the contractual obligations. Right? You got a counterparty risk when you go to McDonald's. You could give them $5, you might not get your burger. Right? That risk that there's counterparty risk in everything. The counterparty risk with these banks right now is that they don't have your money when you go to get it. Right? And that could be because other depositors have pulled it out first, or because the government's done something silly, or because whatever reason XYZ. But that is the definition of counterparty risk, and you should always be aware of it in any sort of transactions you do. Sound good, buddy? You got anything else to say?
No, I think I've ranted plenty today. It felt good.
Yeah,
felt
it
good
was
to say.
Kind of a free for all one today. So excited. Yeah. We're excited to start building this thing out, and you're watching. We're just getting started. So there'll be some direction that comes with this here in the next weeks and months. But we're building out the blog. We really want to be a one-stop shop for people that are trying to learn and understand why they should care about crypto. There'll be educational videos, content, everything you need we can direct you to, and then we'll start doing more educational stuff here. But it's fun to just get on here and talk sometimes too.
That's right. And you don't have to do crypto alone. The Crypto Flight Path is intended to be a resource to help you learn and earn, teach you how to do your own research, teach you how to be self-sufficient and sovereign, and protect yourself along the way so you can have a better life, have access to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and not be weighed down by this legacy financial system that is designed or has become a mechanism that only benefits a few and leaves everyone else in the lurch. So I've said enough for today.
Well said, amigo. All right, I threw the disclaimer up there. We're gonna bounce. Good seeing you, Ted.